Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Tarot for Our Times. I'm Sarah, your medium on the go, and we just don't get any kind of rest. So tonight we are dealing with the ramifications of serial cheater breaking up a long time relationship by hopping into bed with his mistress Putin. And as you can see in the thumbnail, which is a takeoff on the Three of Swords, we have the U.S. The U.S. is a one sword, the EU is another sword, and in the middle, this is the felonious one who is breaking up this long-lasting marriage. Now, the thing about the Three of Swords, when I do this in readings that are personal, and a lot of times it's about, somebody talking about a broken relationship, marriage, friendship, even business arrangements. When the Three of Swords comes up, it's always about a heartbreak, the matters of the heart, and with a pairing that was going very well until the one in the middle stuck themselves in it and interfered. But the good news is that after a while they're going through the storm, the storm does pass. Luckily, the heart will turn in reverse and the swords will fall out. But in the meantime, it's a pretty tough road. So we want to see what the cards are going to say on the emotional level of what happened on Friday. And there is some redemption in that Europe has embraced Zelensky after he was trapped and then kicked out of the White House. But there are new relationships being formed, and when you're born after World War II, and the meanings of our friendships between Europe and that we're not in the Axis and Canada, and to see that break up, it's pretty unbelievable, and I will say heartbreaking to boot. So I first want to see how the rest of the world is seeing us now. So first I will use the good Gilded Tarot Royale for this and see what the whole thing is going on. It's almost like it's us against the world with Russia. I mean, this whole world is upside down. I grew up learning that Russia was kind of like the big bad enemy, and then when it fell, the Soviet Union fell, and we were supposed to be friends. And I remember a long time ago meeting Russians at the annual sea fair that they had in Seattle, and they had their ships in, and it was 91. It was only a couple of years, and they were so hopeful. That was the whole thing. They were just so hopeful that life was going to get so much better. But as things have turned out, what was so evil about their version of communism, which turned into their evil version of capitalism. So that's pretty much led me to believe that those labels are just labels. It's just a totalitarian, one totalitarian label for another, and it's never ending. I mean, they were hopeful after the Russian Revolution with the fall of the Tsar, and yet that just turned out to be awful for people. So I don't know what the answer is, but I did do a reading on whether Trump was an asset to them, and it seems like my colleagues and I agree that certainly things are definitely pointing that way. And I mean, that whole thing on Friday with he needs to love Putin, the man that invaded his country. It's all a mess. It's a mess that we don't need to have, that's unnecessary. So I guess appropriately enough, I want to read on what the world thinks of us, and then maybe a short one on something else. Okay, so what the world thinks of what the world thinks of us now. Okay, so good. Well, as the indicator, we have the Six of Cups, which is a lot about living in the past and the ideals of the past. And for once, I'm not quite sure what this is supposed to mean. I think I need to put a card down here. Okay, oh boy. Okay, now this is clear. We've got the Ace of Cups in reverse. Okay, I think what this is saying is that there is a lot of sadness. I don't think they blame every one of us, but there's a lot of sadness because what they had with us being our allies in the past, it's upsetting. It's a big heartbreak. It's very, very sad and angry and everything else. This is about love upright, but now in reverse, it's kind of like the love is gone, and what they thought of this wonderful relationship in the past, there's a more, okay, I get this now. There's a mourning over that. There's grief over that. So, lying underneath all of this whole thing, I guess the sad thing is that it just didn't all happen on Friday. That was kind of the catalyst. It's been building up, and I always think of this as the flood and the dam bursting. So they don't think a great deal of us right now, but this is the grief of what used to be. And maybe they made it a little bit too idealized. It's another thing. Okay, so here we go. So behind this is the balancing of the finances and them figuring out how to do this without us. And that maybe they're looking at themselves to see if this has been too much about the money. And then we have, well, these cards do not lie. The Wheel of Fortune in reverse. And that doesn't always mean the loss of, although there is a loss of fortune, but also it's also about karma as well. And that we may be feeling some bad repercussions of having such a person, having allowed such a person to be in the White House in such a position of power. But this is maybe a lesson that it needs to be learned. This is, to me, this is almost 250 years of maybe being a little bit too full of ourselves and developing the incorrect values. And don't forget, when the country was founded, slavery was the norm. So there may be some karma for that, and all the awful stuff that happened from the end of the Civil War up into today, I'll have to say, but in different forms. Then we have the moon. This is sick. We have a real sicko running the government now. And this is all about unresolved childhood issues and going to a very, very dark place. It's all about they see him as someone that has deep psychological issues, and maybe they're wondering about ours, that they know that the majority of the people in the U.S. are not on board with this, but yet at the same time, which is the same thing that I see, is that in order for some, even if the election was not quite on the up and up, they still had, and there are still enough people that it's frightening. Even if they are in the minority, they're in a frightening minority with a lot of unresolved issues. And this is what I see with the moon in reverse. And this is what I've been saying about people voting for him that had some very warped values and was not at all in touch with reality. So in the opposition of all of this, I really have to call this the FAFO card in this type of reading. This is regrets. This is regrets. And seeing these the Five of Cups, seeing all these three cups that are down, emotional mess. Yet that we have a couple of cups remaining, which is about there could be redemption, but these foolish people that I don't know, with price of eggs or guns or whatever stupid thing that they think that a president could solve. Now they're living in regret as they lose their jobs, and wanted to ask if they could change their votes the day after, and they're learning about tariffs. But the problem with this is that they're wallowing in this too much. Instead of wallowing, just say, oops, my bad, and just come on board with the winning team. But this is not doing any good. And I will say that I see that our neighbors to the north and south, along with Europeans, and I've done enough traveling and spending time over in EU countries and Great Britain to know that the thing that they don't like about Americans, justifiably so, is that Americans have a tendency to make big mistakes and then just wallow in it and be victims in self-pity and just get in this whole thing and can't get out, especially when growing up after World War II and then speaking to European people my age who grew up with shortages and rations after the war, and probably think that a bunch of spoiled brats is really that's how they're seeing us. And anything negative they have thought of Americans, I would have to imagine, is only magnified right now. So consciously, what is going on in their mind is it's kind of like consciously they're thinking that about Trump withholding money if an aid if Zelensky didn't fold and play ball with him, and again acting the spoiled brat victim. This is what he did, going back to Hunter Biden and how bad Russia, all this stuff, but at the same time saying that he held the purse strings. So they are looking at that on a conscious level and saying that is so incredibly bad behavior and not seeing the big picture. Let's see what the subconscious is. That ought to be good. Okay. Subconsciously, this whole thing that goes back before this, it's like they have carried the burden of being the ones that don't have it. Like Zelensky said, we don't have that big ocean like you do. So they're the countries that have been invaded and occupied by Nazis, and they just this has been, and I could see this is an undercurrent. This is a subconscious thing. They're just sick of it. They're absolutely sick of it. And I can tell you from even recent visits, and like the last one was 6 years ago, is that energy especially from World War II and being in occupied countries like the Netherlands and France, is that that energy is still there. If you are a person that is aware of energy, you can sometimes you can feel it, especially colleagues and that sort of. We can feel it so heavily. You can actually cut it with a knife 80 and 85 years later. It's something I didn't expect. So this is kind of like what Eckhart Tolle talks about, the pain body. This is the pain body of World War II, World War One, and all of these other wars, and seeing us as the spoiled little babies with that big ocean, and we've never had to have a worry about invasions of other countries coming in and forcing their will upon us. So, this is like a big, I cannot blame them. So let's see what we have in the past. We have the Fool upright, which is about beginnings. Since I brought up the recent history, and I'm going to say I'm going to look at this as the 1945 card. Is that we did something good. We at least learned something from the First World War. We did something very unusual and kind of risky in that with the Marshall Plan, and instead of punishing Germany and Italy, we helped to build them up to never have anything like this happen again, because the seeds of World War II were planted in the Great War. So it was a pretty bold and revolutionary idea, and it worked. It worked. We took the leap of faith, and it worked. So now I have to see, this is what makes it even, this whole thing even worse, is that was a lot of planning. It was occupation, but occupation in the way of building countries back up. And you've all seen the photographs and newsreel. They were absolute rubble at the end of the war, and yet we came in, we rebuilt, kind of like with no strings attached, because we realized how important it was to be allies and friends. So this is departure from the conqueror taking all the spoils of war into, let's build these countries back so we don't have another one. And then, Russia just didn't quite follow suit. Russia followed the old gang plan of, let's take what we think are the spoils of war and build it up. So right now we have the Ten of Wands. It's interesting because we had the Ten of Wands upright. We have the Ten of Wands in reverse. So this is they see us as trying to throw responsibility onto them, that here we are, and that someone threw an orchestrated hissy fit, talking about how they owe us money, Ukraine owes us money, this and that, and they just see us as just trying to pass it on and not knowing what real burdens are, and not knowing the big picture. So we've got this here. I think I need to do one more of these. Okay. And then we have the Hierophant, which is now, because this is from this, now we have our government that is really toxic, and enough people are still alive over there to realize that from Hitler and Mussolini, how big a government can get corrupted and yet have the appearance of being legitimate. And so they're starting to see us, boy, I'm just seeing that they're starting to see us as a big bunch of spoiled brats represented by that big orange toddler. Well, this is taking a very interesting. Oh, as always, I always get a new twist to something that I don't expect. So then we have in the hopes and fears, temperance. Temperance. Okay, we have temperance in reverse. So I guess in the hopes, I think maybe they're hoping that our government, as it is going to lose its balance and topple. And I would say with this regime, I'm on board with that. We need to scrap this and start over again. I think the fear is that feeling that he is drunk with power, and temperance in reverse often does talk about substance abuse. And I do have to say that I think they're fully aware that we have a bunch of drunks and addicts that are running the show. And I mean that anyone that has visited and has seen the muskrat lurking around, acting like crazy, and I think that Michael Moore did a brilliant portrayal of him on Saturday Night Live. And he acts exactly like that. If you've ever been around people hopped up on drugs, it's hard to believe that he isn't, or maybe some people are that crazy. But it is with that, and a Secretary of Defense who's an untreated alcoholic, and believe me, I've been through that, and I know what that looks like. So they are seeing us as a bunch of indulgent, egotistical addicts, alcoholics, codependents, and all of that sort of thing. And that they fear, that's playing with dynamite. They fear that, but the hope is that because of that, soon it will collapse on itself. And I have to tell you, that's my hope too. So coming up in the future, I don't think their opinion of us is going to get any better. And I have to throw Canada and Mexico into this. So then we have coming up, they see the crop, the tree that we have planted with poisonous fruit on it. So they want to walk away from that. I'm going to bet that they say we may have to struggle with the money, but their money is poison, and it's laundered poison too. I think that they're very well aware of the real estate dealings of the Trump family and the allegations, I have to say allegations and for entertainment only, of properties being used to launder money. And that is the foundation. So now they're seeing that not only him, but that's how we roll. That is how America rolls. They plant the poisonous tree with the poisonous fruit, and they want the rest of the world to pick it off, eat it, and do whatever we want them to do. They're walking away from that. Like this woman is saying, I was going to pick that, but then I noticed that's America fruit. No, I don't think I want that. Especially after how badly they have behaved towards a person that is a sovereign nation trying to hold it together. Let's see if, let's go a little further out into the future. Okay. Not going to get any better. So the happy family that they thought that they had in us, it was, maybe they're thinking, especially the French in the existential way, they think, it was just an illusion. It was a fairy tale. Americans think that they live in this life that they created through Hollywood that is just not real. And if we don't get our act together, they're just going to see us as totally detached from reality, which I have to say this current administration is. Then we have the conclusion of this, which is the King of Cups in reverse, which is the one of as I've said before, that reverse kings represent different parts of his personality that are dysfunctional. So we have the King of Cups in reverse, which is talking about a one big hot emotional mess, a king who will have everything that he could ever want, but yet paints himself as the big victim, the one who never got the love from his father, so the rest of the world has to pay for it. And this often is not only the mental illness, but also substance abuse. So it looks as though, for entertainment purposes only, as I've said a number of times, that when he has to appear kind of like as sane as he ever is, that he has been given some kind of a cocktail of drugs. I also believe that he never stopped with the steroids after his COVID close call, because that makes him a manly man. So this is false masculinity, total mess, very likely substance abuser, and the rest of the world is seeing that. The rest of the world is seeing that, and I would have to say probably paints us as the codependents en masse who had to put him, seeing after all the terrible things he did in the first administration, we have to put him back there. Yes, what else can we do? So what do we learn from the way the rest of the world, Europe, Canada, Mexico, you name it, what do we need to learn from that instead of going into some stupid self-pity like how dare they look at us that way? What can we learn to reflect on that? And that is Three of Wands in reverse. We're in March. Hold on to your hats. As if you saw my last video was about what I thought for March. This is this card is looking out to the faraway lands, and all of that has been turned upside down. And the three, I would say, these three rods represent March and how that ship is ready to capsize, because we really made some very stupid mistakes. So this is the turning upside down and trying to figure out how we're going to turn that ship of state and the ship of foreign affairs right side up. And this is what we're going to have to do and reflect upon, and know that it's going to take a lot longer to do than how quickly it got destroyed. I think we could probably take this to our personal lives as well, to not be this kind of person that they find so distasteful in us. Very big lesson. So I'm going to see how what I guess the next part of the reading is what can we do, because I don't think this, I just don't think this administration can last. The Congress can be afraid of him and they can wuss out, but they also know from these disastrous town halls that their constituents hate them, and they are going to punish them in the primaries next year, big time. A year from now, when those primaries begin, there's going to be payback, because it's only going to be worse with, with the jobs and all of this sort of thing, and the economy in a shambles. So they're really caught between a rock and a hard place. I just think it's going to come down. How can we get him out and keep the promise of him not ending up in jail, because that's the only way we're going to get him out. And so there's a lot of things to consider, but I believe that, he's going to heap the tariffs on. And I think when it finally sinks into these very stupid heads, that's why everything for food wise is so expensive, and wondering what, having vague memories like what it used to be like to have meat and all this sort of thing. So we have to see what kind of groundwork can we lay now for the future to fix this. This is a big, horrible mess, and I think maybe we want to think of it in light of, when we get first is getting rid of him, but how we're going to start now, even before that happens, to repair things. And I know they say it could take a generation, but maybe we're going to see that maybe it doesn't have to. That is just as quickly as this got ruined, maybe just not, well, it won't ever be just as quickly, but maybe put this on a fast track, and hoping that our former allies will see that this was just an aberration, and try to mend fences pretty quickly. But I have to say, in the psychology of why they really hate this whole thing, and how they see us, I have to say, is just they're spot on. They're right. This may come down to a major soul search. So as I use the Llewellyn in my new shiny rider deck, so we're going to see how we can start to lay some groundwork in the future to fix this. I'm going to do this probably as a shorter reading. So we have here as the Chariot. We've got to start moving forward now, and I think we're on the right track with peaceful demonstrations, town hall. Well, they're not doing town halls, and I was talking to a friend earlier, and we saying, you know what? By their canceling the town halls, it's one of those, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't, because of what's happened. The people, their constituents will say, oh, bunch of cowards. They're a bunch of cowards. They can't face us. If they think that's going to prevent them from getting primaried, I have got news for them. So it's like, we've got to move forward now. We can't wait for this thing to end. We have to show individually that we are not that, and if we were, we're really working on changing that. And I do think that some of these misinformed people that voted for him may be looking at that very seriously now. So the energy of that is, here we go. We've got the Seven of Cups in reverse. We have got to get rid of all of these illusions, and that this slap in the face may be just what we need to say, you know what? We are not so goddamn special as we have thought we were. I mean, just thinking that just because we were born on U.S. soil, that makes us so special, and we're so Yankee Doodle dandy, and the rest of the world can go screw off. It's like we have got to lose that. I always thought it was pretty nauseating to begin with, but I think this is a big illness that we have, that it's like we can do no wrong. So that thing has got to go if we are going to move forward. We've got to let go of a lot of the smoke screen we have been fed for over 300 years before this nation was formed, that we're just so special because we're Americans. Maybe we're not. We're getting slapped down to a point where, no, we're not. And ask some people that may be going over the northern southern border or across the ocean to Europe, how special we are when they come home and complain about how rude Europeans were to them. Can't say that I blame them. So then this whole thing about we just have to win at all costs. We have to be the winners. And right now, this is really saying it all because I don't see a whole lot of people there. Most of them are kind of leaving. Hey, that might be a foreshadowing to the Democrats of the awful State of the Union crap show that's going to be on too. So it's like we always win. We win at any cost. But see, that's the illusion. This is the illusion. The last thing we really won was World War II. We went to Korea. That was kind of a draw, and the preview of coming attractions for Vietnam and all of these things like Desert Storm and the thing in Iraq. It was like there were no winners. That's the whole thing. There were no winners. But we still cling to that and watch the old John Wayne and the Marines movies. So then the Queen of Cups. Couple different things here. I'm going to say Homeland Security. I think that it's interesting that this is upright. I think this is, as she ponders the coin, we need to ponder the ramifications of what we have done that have led to that leads to terror, that we have really compromised our homeland security. But this is a card of hope because this is how we build it again, and the way we build it is to change the wood. To lose that for sure. So we've got to really rethink things. But this is hopeful. It's saying like, we can do it, but we have to look at ourselves and say, I mean, not terrorism is never justified, but when you hear about American imperialism, blah blah blah, there is some truth to it, and then there's some real sicko people that use that as a justification to blow up buildings and shoot planes out of the air and all this sort of thing. So then we got it. This is interesting because in the last part of the reading, this was upright. So what this is saying is we got to snap out of it. Let's not be wallowing in self-pity and living in the past. We've got to turn around to these upright cups that give us some hope and just say we have messed up for several hundred years. So what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do? We have got to just go on. Like the chariot, we have just got to go on. So that is that in reverse. Then we have an opposition, the universe. Time to end that cycle. Time to end that cycle and that false sense of what is manhood. And the false sense of manhood is that some people worshipped and voted for is sitting in the Oval Office in soiled diapers, okay? That, beating on the chest, yelling at people and kicking them out is weak. It's not masculine or macho. So this is a cycle that this has got to end. This maybe he marked the end of that, and that is a wake-up call. So we are going to go to the past now. Well, this is telling us that, we always kind of go to sleep and, instead of taking the time to take a pause to reflect like the upright version, we just kind of like go to sleep and live in some fantasy world and expect others to do it for us. So this is how we've been in the past until we get a rude awakening. I think Pearl Harbor, 9/11, but I think now we're going through another cycle. We've gone through it too much, it's become toxic. And so, once again, if we don't get up and take care of ourselves, the universe will throw something in the path to do it. But yet, we just never seem to learn that lesson. So, in the present, we have the sun. The sun. The truth is coming out. The truth is just glaring at us right in the eye. This is interesting because this is not the little cute baby in the rider deck. This is a warrior. This is a young warrior, and this means that this means we've got to be a warrior and shine the light of truth on us. That this whole thing with the blow up on Friday and now the rest of the world hating us is the truth is that we built that. This has been years in the he was I think that he came along to expose the worst part of ourselves and the part that we really need to change. I hate to have to be enduring him, but I guess the other psychics are right when they're saying he really needed to come back to really convince those that could be, not the ones that are completely poisoned by the Kool-Aid, but others that they just voted for all this fantasy crap, that he's going to save us. So now we see the light and we've just got to fight on. We're not the innocent little baby of the other deck. It's like we see the light and we've kind of got to be warriors to save ourselves. We're always waiting for somebody else to do it. So the light of the sun of truth has shown. A lot of people are not going to like it, but they're going to have to face it if we are going to have any standing in the world whatsoever. So let's see about going to do a hopes and fear. Well, I guess the hope is that we can get a fighting spirit, but the fear is that as usual we will just turn it on each other when the infighting. But I will also say that a further interpretation of this is the infighting of MAGA. Let's spur it on and encourage them and just do a divide and conquer. This may be telling the Democrats that need to gonna fight a little bit dirty, and if the opposition is destroying itself, then let them have at it. Let them fight over the budget or whatever else, and just step back and let their carnage begin instead of bailing them out. So this is a big hopes and fear. So coming up in the future, in the near future, which is what we have, we have to play with the garbage we have now. Okay, so we have the Hermit. So because they control the government, it's like with the Hermit represents the rest of us, who we've kind of got to go it alone. And now, especially since we have our allies just pissed as hell, and yet be careful of the serpent in the path and to not get bit. So we've got to play a delicate game of getting out there, but not getting in a position where he can, God forbid, unleash the army on us. So, but the Hermit is a very wise person, and what we do, our role is now is shining the light to the rest of the world, saying we absolutely hate what happened. And I think a lot of it has begun on social media, the good that social media could do it. So let's see, looking at a little bit more of the long-term future, we have the Empress. And the Empress is saying, let's see who the real enemy is, because this also is a very big glaring card, that represents Russia saying, We do, because of the prominent role that Russia has played in this, we do have an asset for entertainment purposes only, but it highly, let's say, there's a lot of evidence showing that we have an asset as the head of our government. And now that I see this spread line here, is that the light of the sun is shining the truth on that. We have to accept that, because I think a lot of people don't want to admit they voted for something like that, and in fact go as far as to, praise Putin or make excuses for him. So this is the big thing sitting in the middle of the room, is that we have allowed someone to have Russia larger than life in our lives, and this has been happening since they gave him the election in 2016, because I believe there was interference. But the thing is, we have to take responsibility, because the only weapon against anything like that is to vote in such huge numbers. And I was surprised that how many people sat this out. I was absolutely surprised. So when that happens, this prevails. When there are too many, that's when 9 times out of 10 that's going to fail. So the conclusion of this is the 10 of Cups upright, which is the hope of the end of the cycle, and people maybe being back together again. But the rainbow gives us a worry, is to not to look at life like it's a Hollywood sitcom or anything like that, to not get caught up in that illusion again, because this is behind all of the toxic thinking. And lesson learned here is, I think a big problem with this, with the sun in reverse, was the lies that we told ourselves. And we're all, no matter what side of the fence we are in, we have all been kind of telling lies to ourselves and being in denial, because it's a lot more comfortable. But when we smell Russian oligarchy and let people from South Africa come in and rule the land, what can we expect? The first thing is that the rest of the world hates us. And if, God forbid, and I think he's, I'm not ruling anything out, and he were crazy enough to try to take over Canada, you bet the NATO troops are going to come in. And then they're fighting us. They're fighting us in the craziness. But the thing is, and this is, I would also say that some of the, I've been waiting to go here, but some of the big problem are people in our spiritual community who they don't want to look at politics, history, or the truth, because they're too spiritual for that stuff, and they'd rather gaze off into their navel instead of looking at the bright sun of the daylight and seeing what's really going on, especially when we're one group that has something to lose. And in Christian theocracies, so, it's, being a social outcast, and the devil and all of this stuff is one of them. So it's kind of like we have got to learn to face the truth. That is the big lesson coming out of this. And if we learn to really face the truth and see all of this for what it is, instead of being in denial about it, then we can start to move forward and to repair what's the damage that's been done. And I will say one very painful truth that's glaring at us through the Sun card is that we really have to change our basic attitudes of treating life like it's one big football game or hockey game, and or tin soldier, which is, and wars and the glory, and that we're just the hottest thing. We're learning that we put on, to get a little Hollywood about this, we put on all our pretty little prom clothes and soldier suits and all of that and expect to be the king and the queen of the event. And they're saying, no, you lose. You lose the big prize. So all of this old stuff, the old attitudes, they're just not going to work anymore. So we have to change our attitude about what is a winner, what is masculine, and what is feminine, because the rest of the world sees what a load of crap this is. And if we go back to what we think, it's back to the old definition of neuroses, of doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. So what this comes down to is that we really have to change a lot of attitudes and thinking about how we vote and what all of this sort of thing. And also, I'm not going to say grovel, but I'm going to say that we're going to have to show a great deal of humility and taking responsibility for creating this monster. And this is a big wake-up call. And to know that just like he's doing everything so fast, I mean, he can fall just as fast too, but saying that we can't try to repair this like an instant, kind of a thing, which we just love here. It's going to take some time, but it doesn't have to take forever either. That we can move fairly quickly, but we have got to think and we have got to change. So, that is the big message of the Three of Swords, and it is a heartbreaker. So, on that cheery little note, I wish you all goodbye, and I will see you soon.